Are you the type of person that's on the fence about whether or not you should write that book, accomplish that goal, open up that business, and or start a relationship? This is the episode for you. I dive in with my friend Wendy on her journey to opening her new school of swim. And she talks about her journey, all the fears, all the experience, and the step by step things that she did to get this done. Join me in this amazing episode, and it will help you to start your journey as well. This is episode 51. Dare to dive in. Wendy's journey to opening a swim school.
Welcome to Healing with Haley. I'm your coach, Haley Kirk. On this podcast, we dive into ways to heal, embrace, and truly love our lives. Here's my belief. So much of our suffering comes from what we believe. I'm here to help you understand your mind and question those thoughts to start your healing journey. Ready to get started? Let's go.
Welcome, podcasters. I have a very special guest. We have Wendy Gibson here. She is officially in business since September for her swim school. And I just love entrepreneurs. I think we're different breeds of human beings. And so I love picking the brains and glad we got connected. So tell us the origin story of your swim school, the name of it, and we'll go from there.
Oh, well, thank you so very much. I really appreciate taking the time and just being able to talk a little bit about this wonderful project that I've had. So I'm officially been in business since September of this past year, 2024. I've been a Baltimore County teacher for years, and during the summer months, had time, obviously. And going way back, I taught my own kids how to swim and kids in the neighborhood how to swim. And as time went on, my kids got older and knew how to swim and were doing great. And my one son, who's a personal trainer, had some friends who said, "Hey, do you know anybody who is a swim teacher?" And my son said, "Well, actually, my mom." And so I started just going to people's houses and doing little swim lessons, and it was super fun. Well, then COVID hit and everything was shut down and
Yes.
no one was going anywhere. And I was like, this is not so great. But one friend recommended me to another friend. And so I started going to different people's homes because we could, and that was the only way we could do it.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, one mom was sharing my name with another mom. And of course, it was during COVID times. And I had the wonderful opportunity to be on a call in show with the New York Times wellness page. And I actually asked,
Cool.
yeah, it was awesome. And I
Oh
asked
man.
the ladies that were running the program from the New York Times, and they had a couple of pediatric doctors on. And I said, "Hey, look, I'm doing the swim lesson thing. What are we doing?" This is like the very first summer of COVID.
Yeah.
And they said that the majority of deaths that occur with small children between infancy and up to age 4 happens to be with drowning. And even though
Oh.
we don't know a whole lot about COVID, we know
Mhm.
it's dangerous, but we don't know a whole lot. We
Mhm.
feel that the American Pediatric Association is recommending that children continue with their swim lessons. So I
Yeah.
felt like I had a green light and
Yeah. That's the
started
biggest green light.
yeah, I felt great. It was like, this is
Yeah.
awesome. And again, that summer, different moms who were so wonderful to me, they said, "Hey, can you come to my house and teach my kids?" So it was the best thing ever. Here I am driving my Jeep in a bathing suit and flip flops going around to people's houses like I'm still, a kid in college. And then the next summer, it grew again. And the next summer, and folks were saying, "Hey, look, Wendy, this is so great. We really want our kids to swim and they're doing so fantastic. And it just feels terrible. Here we get to the end of August, and we have to stop. Can you please do something during the winter months?" And of course, my joke always was, "Well, we don't live in Florida, so I don't have a pool, and I've got to go back to my real job and be a grown up with real clothes and the whole thing." But finally, I was just seeing such great progress and using my understanding as a elementary school teacher and all of the training that I've had over the years with childhood development. And I really wanted to continue seeing something where kids were learning how to be safe and learning how to have fun, and then taking these skills that they were learning in the water where they're naturally cautious and sometimes afraid, but then they learn how, oh my gosh, look what I just did. And what I started seeing was children were able to transfer that grit and steadfastness into other areas of their life. And parents were just giving me this amazing feedback of how they were so happy. And of course, the biggest thing is that kids can be safe and that we
Yeah.
can keep little ones from having terrible accidents in the water. So this past summer, I thought, well, let me see what I can do. And that's where the journey got started when it came to getting all of my licenses and certifications and becoming official LLC and all those other things. And so I started this past September.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. It sounds like swim has been like not only a fun passion, but like you genuinely enjoy swimming yourself. Is that like where did that start?
Yeah, well, I have to give all the credit to my dad. My like my son, my dad was also he was a longtime Baltimore City coach and in the football and lacrosse fields in the area and all the just awesome things growing up. And I had access to the water through my dad. He grew up in East Baltimore and never had the opportunity to take swim lessons. And my dad was this amazing jock and, you know, part of championship football and lacrosse programs in Baltimore City all these years.
Mm-hmm.
He could not swim. And he was this big dude going to these amazing places to swim with friends and was desperately afraid. And
Oh,
did
yeah,
it.
yeah. Wow.
My brother and sister and I were little. My dad's real goal was to help make sure that we could learn how to swim. So he would take me to all of these amazing summer camps that he ran during the summer
Mhm.
and put me in
Oh,
every kind of program that he could. So I kind of
yeah.
grew up through the years in all these different Red Cross programs and literally just fell in love with water. Like if I could live in the water, and that's the thing I always joke with my little ones as a mermaid, I'd be really
Oh, I
happy.
love that. That's so cute.
Yeah, it's the most beautiful thing. And there's this wonderful quote that I came across that helps summarize things for me. And it's a theory. It's called the blue mind theory. And the quote goes, when you see water, when you hear water, it triggers a response in your brain that you're in the right place. And they call that the blue mind. And it's
Ooh.
connection to this well-being in the world that we call the neutral mind. And so it doesn't mean that we're actually overly positive or overly negative, but it's kind of like this zen that's in the middle way of
Yeah.
mindfulness. And just
Ooh.
when you are one with the water, there's just this joy that comes out and you know how to move and you feel comfortable with it. And
Yeah.
really does come with little kids learning how to move in the water. I always, joke with my kids. It's like, have you ever watched an otter swim? It's the most beautiful thing in the world. Have you ever watched a seal swim? They just move with such grace and beauty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what a beautiful swimmer, if you ever have the opportunity to watch really good swimmers, whether they're high school swimmers or, you know, college swimmers, of course, Olympians, it's just the most beautiful thing. It's art in motion.
Yeah, they're so talented. Yes. I remember, I'll never forget when I saw Michael Phelps. I can't remember what year it was, but he was doing the fly and it was with some Asian guy and he did like a double take, like one, two. And he won by like 0.005 and I was like, that is so cool. Like it was just he had that instinct, to like make it win. It's just so
Yeah,
impressive.
beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And that's what I say with my swimmers all the time. I want you to be safe. That's the number one thing. But I also
Yeah.
want you to have fun and the beauty of just movement in the water. I mean, I know you're a dancer.
Yeah.
It's like dancing in the water. And I
Yeah.
say to my kids all the time, we're not birds. We can't fly in the sky, but swimming is the closest thing. You feel weightless and it's
Ooh.
filled with grace
Yeah.
and it's just beauty in motion.
Oh, you are so passionate. I love your passion.
Yes,
You
I can't get enough of it. It's really true. I don't even think of it as a job. I mean, it is such a joy
yeah, yeah.
to be able to not only work with kids, which is my passion, but to teach them something that will keep them safe and
Mhm.
also will bring them a lot of joy. And sometimes people will say, well, I don't plan on being around the water. Well, yeah, maybe you won't, but
Mhm.
you never know. And with children, like I said, it's the leading cause of death when it comes to little ones. I mean, people can drown in a bathtub. We always hear those old stories, you can drown in a bucket, all those kinds of things. But it's just learning how do we close our mouth? Instinctively we open our mouth because we want to breathe. Well, we
Yeah.
want to fill our mouth up with water. We don't want to swallow water. That's what drowning is, swallowing water. And that can happen in
Oh.
a very small amount of water. It doesn't have to be deep. But the
Mm.
other thing that I'll say to kids too, they become very fearful when their cognitive understanding gets to a place where they realize, oh my gosh, there's depth here and I could sink. I talk to little kids all the time. I say, well, what makes you so afraid? And they'll say, I don't want to sink. And so my joke is, it doesn't matter if the water's this deep, 1 foot deep, or I'll try to stretch my arms because, what's the concept of 10 or 100? They don't really know.
No.
But, they just know that water is deep. All of a sudden, something happens in their brain when they're a certain age where they have this cognitive ability to understand, I can't step here and I'm going to sink like an anchor. But the next step is understanding that you're only swimming on this amount, this 1 foot at the very top.
Mhm.
And if they get past that in their brain and learn how to hold their breath, learn how to get in a streamlined position, learn how to kick their feet. I mean, that sounds easy for some folks, but learning how to kick your feet is different than learning how to walk on land. We're land animals. We spend all of our time. Children
Right.
pick up walking fairly quickly. By the time they've been on this planet for about a year, most kids know how to walk.
Right.
But learning how to swim, we're in an alien environment unless we sleep in it, eat in it, do all the things in it. It's
Yeah.
just an alien world. And we have to teach people how to adapt to it.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something. Yeah. I think when it, and tell me your thoughts on this, like, because we're born in that amniotic fluid, right? So do you think kids are kind of natural swimmers because they were like growing in that environment?
I don't know. That's well beyond my pay grade. You might know a little bit more about. I mean, they do talk about how little ones, babies, have a connection to sounds that they hear. I do know there's been some research on children that are traumatized because of sounds or traumatic experiences that occur in
Mm,
vivo. I know a little bit of experience that folks will talk about, soothing music and soothing conversations. I don't know myself because I can't think back that far, but
yeah, yeah. No, of course.
I
Yeah.
do know that in all of my experience, there's this instinctive draw to the water. You think about it going all the way back, as long as we have records of humanity, people are drawn to the water, whether it's a stream, a creek, a lake, obviously the
Right.
ocean. We're something about it that draws us to, even folks that are uncomfortable in the water. There is something beautiful about the water that draws us to it, whether it's the colors or the shine or just the peacefulness. So
Yeah.
much, so much has been written about it, so much poetry's about it. There's so many quotes that talk about swimming as a way of life and how we're drawn to the water. And then,
Mhm.
just all the other health issues, if you are injured or hurt yourself, if you have a broken bone, there's so much amazing therapy that goes on around the water because again, it's not weight bearing. And
Yeah.
you have this beautiful buoyancy. And if you're unable to float, of course, there are other kinds of gadgets that can help you. But
Yeah,
so much
yeah.
is done. I mean, I've seen so many like incredible athletes that have great difficulties because of muscle or bone injuries, and their training will start right in the water because it's not gravity focused, but
Mm,
start running and they can get that
that
mobility
resistance.
back. Yeah,
Mm,
we have
that's
to
so
move.
cool.
We have to move. We're designed to move, and
Absolutely.
doing it whether it's on land or in water is just definitely the way to go.
Oh, I love that. I have to tell you, so I did compete in swim when I was in high school. Yeah, and I was Captain Kirk of my swim team.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. My events were the 50 free, and the 100 fly, I hated fly, but I was kind of good at
Oh,
it.
that's good.
I
Well,
would
that's
have,
what a coach will do. When a coach sees you, I remember the same thing for me. A coach looked down, he's like, "You got a breaststroke kick. That's what your stroke is." I was like, "Okay."
you're, you're like, I don't like that one.
Right. Yep. There's no picking back then. I don't know what it's like now, but back then, it was nothing. And I did have that wonderful privilege to coach for a long time, which I also love coaching. And that's kind of the world that's melded together, with little ones now,
Fun.
teaching them how to swim. But it's nice because I've had the whole breath, so I know where they're going. It's kind of, that old
Ooh,
adage that we
yeah.
talk about, we begin with the end in mind. So I know where they're actually going, whether they're swimming through high school or college, and then
Yeah.
level. So you said you swam through high school, but did you swim
Mhm.
summer league or did you swim high school competitively?
Just yeah, I was not a club swimmer. I just did in high school on my high school team, and I noticed like people would come in right at the beginning of the season like chubby tummies, like not like strong muscles, and at the end of swim season like
Yeah.
leaned out, super strong, girls super tight. Like everyone looked good after swim season. Like they looked very fit, very healthy, and it's just,
You do
I
two
mean,
a days?
you're swimming 2 hours a day, and then
Okay.
on
Yep.
Saturdays for the meets, I mean, it's just so much activity, and it's resistance. So you're still getting like that muscle tone. It's like it's cardio and resistance training in one. Like it's so cool. There's
It's
so much
amazing.
to love.
I've been also, through my dad's influence, I've been a pretty much a lifelong runner, and I just absolutely adore it. And it's just normal. That's how I start my day. But there's something about swimming. When I swam, I didn't swim as a kid, didn't have the opportunity, but I swam competitively when I was in college. I
Mhm.
just remember being so hungry all the time.
You're
I
burning
just could
so
not
much
get
time.
enough food in me. And
Yeah.
I remember asking my coach one time about that, and he said the same thing. It's like, well, if you were weight bearing, I guess there's something about the jostling, of the movement on land, but in swimming, it hits us later, and it's the same thing. Like I could be in the pool all day and never eat or drink anything, but then I'm on my way home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm ready to eat like a lumberjack. I can't get enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember my go-to meal was like a tuna sandwich, like a whole
There you
can
go.
of tuna, like a big can, and a sandwich, and then a big glass of milk. Like that was like my post swim treats. Like I loved that meal.
I love that. That's so awesome. That's so
Yeah. So, so as a mom, I'm so interested in this, not interested, but like terrified of this idea that that's like the number one cause my son could potentially have his death. Like that's like so scary. So you said you taught your own kids how to swim. What was that like?
Well, so a big part of that, like going back to when I was a kid, my dad put us in like every kind of summer program that he ran. So I had the
Hmm.
opportunity to take Red Cross classes through summer camps that I was involved in. And because I loved it so much, I had gone all the way through to whatever the last level was. And I remember saying, well, now what am I supposed to do? I was probably like 14 or something. And they said, well, now you take the junior life saving course. And I was like, okay. So I took that one. And
Cool.
as a Red Cross person, you can start lifeguarding at 15. So I said, okay, that's great. That's the next thing I want to do. It was just really all just driven by my own interest. So I started lifeguarding at my
Mhm.
local YMCA, and it
You
was
got to, yes.
so I was like, okay, now what? And I'm also, because I'm a teacher, I'm kind of a natural nerd. So I was like, okay, now what else can I learn next? So I
I
did the
love it.
lifeguard training, and in American Red Cross, they offer a program called Water Safety Instructor. You can take that particular course. So I took that course. That's how I started teaching. So I was just a kid in like late high school, college. I worked at some NCAA sports camps and had just started, working with kids and not really knowing what I was going to do as a grown up. I just really liked working with kids. So I was in high school and then in college. And then through, kind of a natural progression, started realizing, well, you're going to need to get a real job. And the only thing that I just knew I was good at was working with kids. I understood them. I I like their world. I wanted to see them to be successful. So
Yeah.
I was an early, elementary education major at Towson University. Went
Awesome.
through that and started teaching, as a public educator. And
Hmm.
then once I had my own children, looked around, I was like, oh man, I got to get them in a program because we tend to do what we're, taught ourselves. My parents did that. And I thought, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. I kind
Yeah.
of followed that same model. And for
Right.
me, I was very fortunate that I had, public educator, teacher parents, and they did fantastic things for me. And I kind of just followed in their footsteps, hopefully for my kids. But for me at that time, money was pretty tight. So I fortunately had friends who had pools. And so
Uh-huh.
somebody would invite you over and say, hey, you want to come over to our house for a cookout? And I was like, sure. And, I'm thinking the whole time, I guess I was kind of a pre-entrepreneur. I was like, hey, gee, so and so really could use a little bit of stroke work over there, and started talking to some moms and basically talked my way into how about if we come over Saturday and I'll work with the kids. So,
I
so all
love that.
my mom friends were like, yeah, sure, come on over. So I started teaching my own kids at friends' pools. I would do swim lessons for all the kids, basically like a little group lesson.
Fun.
My
So
mom and
just to make sure I'm understanding the story. So you were saying that your own kids could have some work on their breaststroke, or your friends' kids could
oh,
have.
I threw every single kid I could find. And so like I would tell that like the one mom who had the pool, she would
Yeah.
have a bunch of people over for a pool party. And
Hmm.
you look in the water and like half the kids are sinking, they're drowning. I'm like, oh my
Yeah. Ugh,
hot mess.
so
And then of
scary.
course, this was kind of before, I mean, this is going back a little bit. I mean, we didn't really have the fancy, you know, water wings and the vests and stuff. I mean, they had little kind of things. So anyway, everybody was looking for somebody to teach the kids how to swim because you have a pool and it's pretty frightening. So I
Right.
just said, hey, look, this is my background, etc. And everybody kind of knew. And so again, I would just swoop everybody up in the neighborhood and my kids, their friends, I would just do a little group lesson, they were all ages. So somebody might
Yeah.
be 4, somebody might be 6, somebody could be 10. And then I would split them. Like if you were really a beginner, okay, you guys wait, Miss Wendy will be over there in a minute. And then the
Hmm.
kids better, I'd work with those kids. And then, we did some pool hopping, back in the day in Baltimore City, you could go to a pool and pay $1, to get everybody in. So we would go to different pools and I'd do a little bit of swim lessons. And, my poor kids, they've always been my guinea pigs. So I was like, okay, come on, let's try this, whether they liked it or not, poor little things. But later on, my son and my one daughter swam for me. So I coached summer league and they swam for me and they did a really fantastic job. To my heartbreak, however, they didn't continue on. They were both really super talented and I wanted them to continue to competitively. But
Yeah.
that's a parent thing. I had to
It,
set that back and let them do their own and fly and
yeah.
you know, successful in their own sports. Um,
Right.
and I started coaching actually quite a bit. And a good friend of our family, I was on the pool deck at UMBC and it was one of those long all day meets. And I remember he walked over and he said, Wendy, why are you here? And I was like, oh, coach, I'm coaching. I really like it. He said, but where are your kids? And I thought, oh, you're right. I was spending all my day and weekends coaching other kids, other people's kids, and my kids were off doing sports and I was missing watching them.
Mm,
So that was sort of when I went back to work full time as a teacher and
yeah.
kind of let swimming sit on the side. And
Hmm.
later on, when my son was grown and he, graciously brought me back into it because he had friends who were getting married and had little ones and we're starting to look for a swim teacher. So it kind of went full circle, which is really cool.
Yeah. You're touching on such good things. Like there is that balance, right? Of as being a mom and like an entrepreneur. It's tough, right? Because we have these passions that we want to build and grow like a child, right? It's kind of like our little baby in a way, in a metaphoric way, but then we have these our own children and we're like, whoa, wait, like this is
Right.
actually more important at this time because I'm gonna miss these moments. And it's such a balance. It's really hard. And I'm sure that was really tough for you to like kind of make that decision. So when you heard that, how did you make changes? Did you totally put it on the back burner? Would you kind of touch on it here and there? Or how did you figure that out?
That's been part of the real joy in the whole journey. I mean, I've learned so much from, I have 3 children. I've learned so much from watching them grow. I always used to joke that we grew up together. I was so young and
Oh,
dumb and made so many mistakes
yeah.
all years growing up. And, parents do. Children,
Yes.
they don't come with the owner's manual, and we do the best we can. Like, we tend to do what our parents did for us, like what I had just said before.
Right, right.
And, so I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And, kind of that's my personality, and pushing, and let's get going. And, children come with their own hopes and their own dreams and their
Yeah.
own things.
Personalities. Yeah.
Might not be what I want.
Right.
So that's been a part of the journey. And I'm still learning. My kids are
Yeah.
all adults now, and I'm still learning from them, and still apologizing for all the mistakes that I made. But that's part of the repair process. We learn and we become closer together. And it's so interesting to me because even these little guys that I'm working with now, they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old. I got a couple kids that are like 7 or 8. And I'm learning so much from them because the goal is parents are paying for me to teach them how to swim. And,
Mm,
they're sitting there watching, and that's what the goal is. But here's the thing, when children get in the water, it's like I said before, they have this amazing experience with this thing that engulfs them. The water's beautiful, the sounds, the texture, the feeling. I have an agenda that in the next 30 minutes, as a school teacher, here's my objective, here's our warm up. As a coach, you're going to do this many things. This is your set. And I'm going to wrap it in a beautiful bow at the end of the 30 minutes and say, here, parent, look, your child has shown progression. Well, it doesn't always work that way. And
no.
that's been what's fascinating about this whole process. And it's learning how children think, how they respond, and how can I not only be the master of distraction when
Mm,
somebody's
mm,
afraid and help them
mm,
realize that they can do it, but
mm.
how can I encourage them and get them on the same page as me? There's just so much that goes on every single time. That's why I love it so much.
Wow. So
Every
walk us through a scenario. That's so if a kid is one of the kids is like freaking out and really scared, what do you do? What's your
That's an
go-to?
excellent question. That's an excellent question. And every child I have is completely different. And that's what's
Yeah.
in doing this. And I spend a lot of my time reading about child development and what the appropriate stages are from,
Ooh.
the time they're 2, that's my youngest clients, the connection that they have with their parents. Some kids are deathly afraid, some aren't. I've had kids scream bloody murder so loud, and I'm thinking to myself, well, their parents are never going to bring them back. And sure enough, next week they come back, and I'm like, okay, go us, let's keep going, and so it really depends. The biggest thing that I spend time with, and it's just as a classroom teacher, it's building relationships. You have
Yeah.
to build a relationship of trust, because
Mhm.
it depends on where they are developmentally and cognitively. Some kids, there's no fear, they're so excited, they just go straight in. But I've noticed over the years that typically around 3.5-ish, 4 years oldish, their brain begins to understand that, oh my goodness, this water will make me sink to the bottom. Now, it doesn't happen with every child, but most children begin to get this understanding, this awareness that this is something scary and dangerous. And it can fluctuate.
Wow.
Some kids,
Yeah.
they never notice, they don't care, they love it. They're gung ho. Some kids are going to be a little more shy, a little bit more reserved. So I ask the parents to just watch and give me time. And most of my folks are so amazing that they believe in my philosophy, and I've never had any issues. Folks
Yeah.
are so the number one, it's building relationship with this little one and
Yeah.
trying to sing songs, play games. I'm super silly. Trying to win them over.
Yeah.
Learning what they're into, learning what they like, whether it's a favorite color, favorite song, favorite. I mean, I had one mom, this was a couple summers ago, her little one was just, she would scream bloody murder week after week after week. And
Yeah.
mom's, she said, do you know Taylor Swift's song? And she named off a couple of them. And she's like, we're real Swifties in our house. Why don't you? Because I don't know. I was singing something like, I don't know, row, row, row your boat, or, ring around the rosy or something. She said, try a little Taylor Swift. And I was like, okay.
I'll
So
try
I
anything. Yeah.
started brushing up on my Taylor Swift, and at least it calmed her. I mean, she still wasn't happy, but there was no
Right.
more screaming. And we
Yeah.
started singing in the water, which was great. But, the normal progression, like I said, from coaching, when we start with kids, we want to introduce the water, get them comfortable. I'm real big on safety. So, you'll hear me say over and over again, it depends on the age, of course, but we find the bottom of the pool. We learn how to put our 2 feet down. I want to teach kids where the slope is, where the wall is. Every pool is different. And that little one, number one, has to know if for some reason they should fall in, what am I going to do? So they don't panic. So it's, how do I reach for the side? How do I plant my
Mhm.
feet? Just doing this, I've watched little kids just frantically reach out. And typically what happens is their head goes straight down. I said, well, all you have to do is just put your feet down. And a lot of times they're all tucked up. So they're thrashing about and they're wobbling all over, and then down goes their head. So I said, well, look, just let's put our feet down and stand up straight and tall. Well, most kids love that, because it's,
Yeah.
again, empowering them. And before you know it, it's like, okay, well, this isn't too bad, because now I see whether it's a step, if the water's really deep, we'll do it on a step.
Hmm.
Have slopes, so we'll do it on a slope. So that gives them the empowerment to know that I'm in control. And that's the other thing that I
Yeah.
think about, is how can you be the boss of the water? And for the longest time, I hold on to them nice and tight. And I explain that I'm going to hold you right here around your waist, and you're going to feel my fingers really nice and snug. But as they get comfortable with me, it's interesting. Some kids, I'll say, you'll feel my butterflies. I'll kind of make my hands go back and forth so I'm still there. But then sometimes kids are just so comfortable, they go at it. And as long as I'm close by, or my fingertips are right underneath their back, if they start to float. So the biggest thing is, we want to find that bottom of the pool, find the side of the pool. And then, of course, treading water and floating are the 2 really big skills to get started. And a lot of times I'll just joke about riding a bicycle. It's interesting. A lot of kids don't ride ponies anymore. They don't ride horses. So I'll talk about, have you ever ridden a pony? And I tell you, almost every kid says nope. So I was like, oh, well, that doesn't work. But mostly everybody has a bicycle. So we talk about
Yeah.
bikes and how to ride them. And I'll ask them about their favorite color. And most kids get really curious, because I also am a bike person. So I have a number of bikes in my house. We'll talk about all the colors. And one little guy that I had the other day, when he got out of the pool, the first thing he said to his dad was, do you know Miss Wendy has 4 bikes? And he rattled off all the colors. So
It's so cute.
whatever works. Yeah, it's like kind
Yeah.
of like works. And then we just start the normal coaching progression, where we learn how to float, then we learn how to glide. I talk a lot about streamline position, and learning how to kick. And a lot of times kids really need that, little ones will need that support. So whether it's noodles or, flotation bars, that kind of thing. But if a
Hmm.
child's a little bit older and is comfortable floating is really the big thing. You want to float on your back, float on your
Mm.
front, head, because the big thing is, how do I move in the water? Again, thinking again, like of an otter. How does an otter move in the water? How does a seal move in the water? Well,
Yeah.
they're slippery in the water. So I talk a lot about, let's try to be slippery in the water. So it's just great. And that's like the normal progression. But getting back to your earlier question, if someone is so afraid and so upset,
Hmm.
a lot of holding, and there's a lot of me being silly and joking, singing
Mm.
songs. It's a lot about diversion, and it could be, if I have a little boat and the boat is pouring water, I'll have like little toys or something where we try to blow, because the other thing too with little kids is they keep their mouth open all the time. They're swallowing. That's frightening. Nobody
Mhm.
wants like that, or breathing in their nose. So we have to learn how to breathe. And I talk about that too. It's like, well, we're not fish, but we're kind of like a dolphin. So how do dolphins breathe, or how does a whale breathe? And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And,
Mhm.
before you know it, time marches on, and, if they're splashing, they're having fun. we'll do silly things like toes up and toes down. And how do we move our hands? How do we push and pull? Again, it depends on the
Mhm.
age of the child. I want it to be developmentally appropriate. So there might
Yeah.
be some vocabulary words. Like if I have a little one that's 2 or
Yeah.
sometimes 3, well, how do we push the water? How do we pull the water? How do we make our hands go like jellyfish? And as they get more comfortable, they become more just like your child, unfortunately. They become more independent from me. They're not holding onto me so tight. So I
Mhm.
like to joke that you're successful as a parent when you've been fired. That's a terrible thing to think about. But, I don't want my 35-year-old still clutching to me as much as I wish.
I
You
know. It's that
know,
like
fired.
that
Exactly.
codependency in us that's like, stay,
Right.
baby.
But it's the same thing with swimming. So they're clutching me. I've had them like choking me practically. But
Right.
as we get more comfortable, they're farther and farther away from me. And then I'm just basically swimming side by side. It's a really beautiful thing. And then
Yeah.
he's about joking, about racing one another and
Hmm.
race across the pool. And
Yeah.
it's a beautiful progression.
That's awesome. That's so cool. And so how much of when you're teaching kids, how much of it would you say is like emotion regulation?
Oh my gosh, so much of it is. Again, it's what state are you in? Just think about it when you go for a
Yeah.
workout. Sometimes you're sort of like, blah. So I have kids that come into the pool, they're so happy. Oh,
Yeah.
Miss Wendy, they come like, oh, so charged. And like I said, I've had the other extreme too. Screaming at the top, no, I'm not getting in the water, that kind of thing. Um, so it's winning folks over. It's having conversations, asking them about their shoes. I love the color of your bathing suit. And
Mm.
oh my gosh, you're wearing those earrings today. And, little silly things like that. I hear you're going to a birthday party after swim today. And it's
Mhm.
a version. You think about it when you're trying to get your little guy in a car seat. Sometimes he's happy about it, sometimes he's not. And so
Right.
what do you need to do? So is it trying to convince them to get on my team? We're not doing punishments anymore. We're not really doing rewards because I want this to be internal.
Mm.
And for me, again, it comes back to my philosophy of being safe and
Mhm.
having fun. So I
Yeah.
really, really try to make this as fun as possible for the kids and for the moms and dads too. They're sitting on the pool deck for 30-ish minutes. They had to drive to get here. In the summertime, I'm going to people's houses. That's different. I would show up at their house and it was great. Hey, there, Miss Wendy's here. And, they would kind of putter around the yard or do whatever. And I'm in the pool having a good time with kids. This is
Yeah.
different. Wintertime, they're driving to the pool. You've got to change your clothes, get in the water. Parents are really, really giving up a lot of their time for something that they believe strongly in. So I want to make it worth their while when they come so that it's fun for the kids. And I want it to be when they leave and they're walking down the pool deck to the locker room with their mom and dad. And they'll say, that was so much fun, Mom. Can we go back next week? When are we going back to swim with Miss Wendy? I want
Mhm.
a real positive experience for them.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So for someone like I've seen these crazy videos on Instagram where it's like babies being
Yeah.
able to swim, and I'm like, what is that? Like, what is that? So have you had babies where you've
I have that's an impressive program. It's really impressive.
yeah.
And the philosophy is a little bit different than mine. I mean, I've
Uh,
watched some of those videos too. I've seen some of the demonstrations live. And I guess it gets back to what your core beliefs are. Like sometimes folks will joke with me, why don't you just, I've had some kids that are so temperamental and the parents want them to swim so bad. They're like, can you just do it like in the olden days where they would just take a kid and throw it in the pool?
oh,
It was
yeah.
swim. And I was like, yeah, sure. Well, we do that. And that child's probably never going to want to see me again.
Little trauma, yeah.
And I have seen some situations where kids were just so distraught and so, and folks will persevere. And I've seen those beautiful videos too. But I don't know, sometimes I wonder, those are the ones that work. How many don't work? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just, I don't, I'm not gonna. criticize anybody else's technique or
Sure.
anybody else's philosophy. I know what works for me, and
Yeah.
it's relationship based. I want to have a really positive relationship with that swimmer, no matter what his or her age. I
Yeah.
hope thinking back, we were talking about that a little bit earlier. I hope thinking back, I know I made a lot of mistakes when I was coaching too, but I hope my swimmers can think back and say, hey, Coach Wendy really believed in me and really wanted the best for me. And
Mhm.
boy, did you work hard doing it, And I
Mhm.
want these little guys to think the same thing, that I really care for
Yeah.
them and I want the best for them. And I'll say to them, I know, sometimes if they're crying, I'll say, I know this is scary, but
Yeah.
guess what? Do this. I believe that you can do this. And
Mhm.
we'll keep working on it. And maybe it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a step forward, 1 step back. But like I said, my goal is at the end of every class, kids leave happy, challenged, sure, tired. We want our kids to be tired. They're
Yeah.
swimming, should be working.
Good. Good
Um,
exercise.
right. I want their bodies moving. I want them to be safe though. And, if somebody else can get a kid to swim in, a week's time, all for it. I'm happy for them. Go for it. I'm not going to guarantee something like that. But I will say that the kids that I work with love swimming,
Yeah.
and parents are super happy that when we get to an end of a session or at the end of a season,
Mhm.
they've seen really good progress. And I mean, my folks have been so kind. I've just gotten really, really good feedback. And that's what is my clients. Those are the ones that made me think, I think I can do this and step out. I mean,
Yeah.
it's really a step of faith. And I've only been doing this for a short period of time, but each month it's a little bit more and a little bit more. And again, I'm happy. It's one of those things where I can't even believe this is like a job, but I just absolutely love it. And bring my all into it every time I work with a kid.
That's amazing. I love that so much. I love that you're, it's almost this because I feel like sometimes as adults we can like disregard kids' emotions and just be like, no, just do what I'm telling you to do, right? But your approach is very much like, oh, like, let's, okay, so you're afraid, it's okay to be afraid. We can still do hard things. It's very much like emotionally regulating and relationship building. And I feel like every human operates best when those two things are met. I think it's just a prime environment for learning.
Well, I think if we're looking for long-term results,
Yeah.
not just something that we can just check off a list very quickly, it's first building a relationship with someone. And the thing that I've been learning over the last just recent couple months, couple of years, is that children do have really deep emotions and they have really deep feelings. And like I said, I've always had an agenda. I'm very goal oriented. This is
Yeah.
what you're going to do. Get yourself out there on the field. You're going to do this.
Yeah.
I've learned that listening to what children say is important. You know,
Hmm.
my own kids tell me this is great or no, this isn't good. I don't want to do this. And, we joke about boundaries and things like that, but little kids are trying to tell us. And I believe it was Dr. Becky Kennedy who said that crying is a language. And when
Yeah.
you hear children cry, they're telling us something. They may not have the words to tell
Hmm.
us,
Hmm.
but if I want to produce something, if my goal is to get them to swim, then
Hmm.
as a teacher, I do need to be intuitive and guide them. I'm like a facilitator. I'm a guide. I am a coach. I
Yeah.
do want to teach them something, but I think it's a journey that we take together. And I've seen really good results with that particular philosophy, and that's what works for me.
Oh, that's so cool. Where do I sign up, Wendy? I want to sign up my 2-year-old.
Like I said, I played around with the idea of the name for a really long time. And I had the opportunity, as I mentioned, to coach Summer League a number of years ago. And my swimmers were near and dear. And I've been in touch with some of them over the years and kept in touch, I guess I should say.
Hmm.
So it's Wendy's Waves Swim School. So
Cute.
it's all
Oh,
one
it's
word.
so. I'm
Yep.
all for an alliteration. That is
Town.
adorable.
Yep. It's just Wendy's Wave Swim School.
Uh-huh.
And it's the same thing on Instagram. I have a web page and a LinkedIn, and I'm trying to like up my game with social media. So on LinkedIn, I'm trying to give like coaching tips, and this is the reason why you do these kinds of things. And I'm
Mm.
trying to get super professional, the way LinkedIn is. And,
Yeah.
and on my Instagram, it's just a lot of really cool pictures and motivational thoughts and all that other cool stuff. And then, of course, the web page is just straight facts. This is how you sign up. This is how you register. This is my mission statement, all of
Right.
those kind of like official business things. So,
Awesome. Oh my goodness. And so do you have like seasons of when you do it, or can people sign up like right away?
yeah, it's the kind of thing. So, you'll see on the web page that you can buy a package, and some folks like that. It makes it a little bit
Mm.
easier. So you go and you say, look, I want 6 lessons. I want to be able to just book this and get this going. I know exactly when I'm coming. That's great. Then I have
Mm.
time where folks can do drop-ins. And again, my feeling is life can be messy, and children are not robots. And I've always said, art teaching is an art and a science.
Mm.
So children get sick. It's that time of year where everybody's indoors. So
Mhm.
folks can sign up. I'll have folks will pay for a whole package, and then say this week it just doesn't work out. Somebody's sick, they're not feeling well. No worries. You can go back into the Google Calendar and cancel your time, or shoot me a text and say, Wendy, this isn't going to work out. Fine. And then we just move you to the next week. Or I have some folks that they're just like, can I just sign up for week to week? That works fine too. So once you go into the website, you fill out a little form with your information. I get an email, then I say, hey, really great to meet you, kind of thing. Again, it's really relationship based, kind of like send them a quick little message. And then, I like folks to know that, I'm legit, you're legit, it's not any kind of weird stalker out there or whatever. Then I send you a
Yeah.
private Google Calendar. Then you can look at the calendar for, 7 days and look at everything and say, oh, these slots are available. And it works really great for me. Some folks want something right after school. I have a couple families that are like, that doesn't work for me. My kids need to go home, they need to eat. And
Mhm.
they're like a 6 o'clock in the evening kind of family. And because it's wintertime and you're not outside playing, it works great. I have
Yeah.
some like, nope, every Sunday afternoon, that's perfect for me because we're not doing anything else. And
Yeah.
we're not football fans, so we're going to go to the pool and we're going to swim. So it's pretty much everything. So you can do a whole package. You can do week to week. You can do drop in. You can switch things up. It's pretty accommodating. I'm very flexible.
Oh my goodness. I want to sign my son up because I'm like we go outside a lot. We're right by Bear Creek, and yeah, I would just hate for something scary like that to happen. So,
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, what do you do when you panic? You're not thinking when you panic.
no. No.
So with practice and knowing what to do in case of emergency, I mean, I think even little ones can learn that. So it's like an emergency action plan. You know what to do.
Yes. Oh, Wendy, this was such a treat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the invitation and just the wonderful opportunity to meet with you and get the word out that swimming is important and it's necessary. But it's also fun, and it's an amazing activity. You can swim from the time you're little all the way through to seniors, and it's a great exercise, and it's beauty in motion. So I love it.
Ah, thank you again. Thank you so much. Okay, so the new year has rolled around, but are you sick and tired of feeling like your goals and new habits just never seem to stick? Let's change that. I've been there, but I've also found a way out. I paid off over $32,000 of student debt, $15,000 in consumer debt, built businesses, launched this podcast, and helped my clients achieve their goals across so many areas of their lives. And now I'm inviting you to take the next step with me. I have a proven system that works. When you join my coaching program, here's what you're going to get. You're going to get 2 personalized one-on-one coaching sessions each month, access to an exclusive private podcast feed where we dive into habit formation, people pleasing, boundaries, difficult relationships, and so much more through my monthly workshops. You'll also get a customized yearly plan that will plan out the entire year for the goals and how we're going to achieve them. All of this is designed to help you make lasting changes and achieve the life that you want. If you are ready to take the next steps, go ahead and go to the description podcast notes and click the link to schedule a free consultation with me, and we'll dive in and talk more details. I'll see you there.